Hello and welcome to the sixth and final day of the Lakshminarayana Global Music Festival 2022. As the 31st year of the festival draws to a close, we'd like to thank audiences who've been with us on this journey over the years. And although we would have liked to celebrate with you in person, we're grateful to those of you who tuned in online and have always been there to support us. The Lakshminarayana Global Music Festival was started by my parents, Dr. L Subramaniam and Vijay Subramaniam, as a tribute to my father's father and guru, Professor V. Lakshminarayana. Professor V. Lakshminarayana was a torchbearer, an educator, a musician, a father, a guru, and an inspiration to many around the world. On this last day of the festival 2022, we'd like to present Lullaby, a composition by Dr. L Subramaniam, featuring Kavita Krishnamurti Subramaniam and harmonica player Corky Siegal. What you just heard was Lullaby by Dr. L Subramaniam, Kavita Krishnamurti, and Corky Siegel. Next, we'd like to present a conversation between two friends and colleagues who've worked together for decades. A conversation between Dr. L Subramaniam and Corky Siegel.
Welcome to Lakshminarayana Global Music Festival. It's a great pleasure, privilege to have your interview for our festival. We have been here for at least 3-4 festivals. We have had the great pleasure of having you for Lakshminarayana Global Music Festival in India. And of course, we have done things outside India also. Thank you very much for accepting to do this interview.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor. And it's an honor that anyone would ask me any questions, much less Dr. L Subramaniam.
Thank you. We would like to know something for the audience, can you explain about blues music for people who are not very familiar with that?
Yeah, now, I'm not a historian about this, but my experience of blues music is more my personal experience. But, certainly, blues did come from slavery. And as you know, music is there to uplift. And when people are in despair, music could help at least bring them out of despair so they could live in the world. And blues did serve that purpose. And just to straighten this one out, a lot of people say because of that, people think of blues, the blues, I have the blues, which is a feeling of sadness. They think of the music as sad music. But actually, most of, at least for the Chicago blues, most of the repertoire, in terms of the lyrics of Chicago blues, is very fun, uplifting, humorous stuff. So that's one of the things that people. B.B. King said, if blues was so sad, how come people are dancing? So that's
wonderful.
That's the thing. So my personal experience is I wanted to be I wanted to play jazz, and I was a fan of this guy named Roland Kirk, who I just loved him so much. A jazz tenor saxophone player, and he sometimes would play 3 instruments at the same time.
Wow.
But just a brilliant jazz player, renowned. And I was trying to learn, when I was in college, some of his solos. And I could only get through a few bars, where all my student friends were already on to John Coltrane. They already done, I'm still working on these few bars, and I'm thinking, this is for me, for my aptitude, this isn't going to work. But I really wanted to play music. And when I discovered the blues offers something that, on the surface at least, is simple. It's a simple structure. You don't have to have knowledge about chord changes and harmony. And so the knowledge you need to play the blues is pretty simple. It's not a big challenge. Of course, with any form of music, there's complexity that's under the surface, as much as you want to make. But at that point, all I cared about is I wanted to feel what it was like to play music. What is self-expression like? And I was feeling like in jazz, I'd have to spend 10 years before I got to the point where I could just then express myself. And with blues, it seemed like it was going to happen more quickly. So I started really simple and just learned one blues rhythm phrase, da-dum, doo-dum, 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 do, and just played that over and over and just got deeper and deeper and deeper. And at some point I just started laughing because I just felt all this joy in that connection to the music. And that's how I fell in love with the blues. And also listening to all these, I had 3 albums, Jimmy Reed, Muddy Waters, and Howlin' Wolf. I had these 3 albums, and I listened to them over and over and over and just used to dance around the house in ecstasy, just laughing and dancing. You know, there was something about the rhythm. I could actually explain that a little bit to your audience. One of the most common rhythms in blues is called a shuffle. And it's based on what we call musically a triplet figure. So it's da 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 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. And the rhythm is built on 1 and 3. So it's da 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 da. So you hear the shuffles da 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 da. But the way the blues players played it, they added something to it. So instead of da 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 da, it was da 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 da. So it didn't fit in the musical grid. It didn't fit into the grid of a norm. And it ended up adding energy to the rhythm. So instead of da 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 da, it was da 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 da, and the shuffle came out da 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 da. Just a little snappiness was added to it, and then people would say, "Boy, it makes me want to get up and dance." And because added energy was put in, it was a variation on the triplet that added energy to it. Well, as it turns out, it exists in all music. That kind of, you know, masters, my understanding is that when I hear great players play, they're always adding different things into the music, you know, that kind of rhythmic variation. I know in Indian music, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel that I would call it a lilt that happens in Indian music, where you're not just sticking to the grid of triplets or 16th notes, that there's more going on. There's extra energy put into the music. Is that right?
Great. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. So anyway, when I was playing this rhythm, I started finding that there's more you could put in, and it just was really exciting to me. And then I learned some blues songs. I wrote some blues songs. I met my friend Jim Schwall, a guitar player at the university, and we were in a jazz band. I was playing saxophone.
Oh.
And he was at the other side of the orchestra playing guitar. And one day we met in the elevator, and he played guitar. I said, "Do you play blues?" And he said, "Well, a little bit." You know, he mostly played country music and bluegrass, but he played some beautiful finger-picking blues, and we hit it off musically right away. We put a little repertoire together, and we're just looking for somewhere to play to the public. I think that's what artists, want to do. That you have this natural tendency to just want to share your experience of joy with others. I think music forces us to do that. So we're looking for somewhere to play, and we just walked into this bar, and we said, "Could we come and play here?" And this was 1965, and I think I'm 21. And the owner of the clubs said, "Yeah, just set up here on the floor and play for our afternoon ladies crowd." And so we played, and he hired us to play every Thursday night from 9 at night till 4 in the morning.
Wow.
And he hired a bass player and a drummer each Thursday night, a different bass player and drummer. And now keep this in mind. So here we were listening to Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters. And here we are playing at this club. And who shows up, hops on stage, and plays with us? Howlin' Wolf,
Wow.
Muddy Waters, and all those people we were listening to on those albums.
Oh my God.
And they took us, they realized we loved them. You know, we idolize them and we love this music, and they returned the love. They took us under their wing. And for months and months, we were playing every Thursday night here with all these Chicago blues artists, Otis Rush, Otis Spann, Junior Wells, Buddy Guy, Willie Dixon, just on and on and on. All the littles, all the bigs, all the talls, all the shorties in the blues came and took us under their wing. And that's how I got my start in music. And it was, and then I'll tell you, finish here. And then 1 year later, we're playing in another club. And this one fella comes in night after night after night after night. And one night he comes up to me, and he's like, for a month, he keeps coming to hear us every time we're playing. And he starts early in the evening, like at 9 or something, and is there till early in the morning. And he comes up to me one time and he says, Corky, I'd like your band to jam with my band. And I'm thinking, who's this guy? And what's his band? Turns out he was Maestro Seiji Ozawa.
Wow.
And he was with the Chicago Symphony. And so we sat down and started working out how we're going to do this. And we thought we'll have this composer who is also a fan, William Russo, write the piece for us. And so the first question that Russo and Ozawa asked me was, Corky, we want to bring blues to the symphony music. How are we going to do it? And the idea wasn't to have the symphony just back up my band. It was trying to find out how we could collaborate. And how are we going to do it? And I said, well, the first thing we should do is offer something for everyone to not like. And they laughed and they loved that, because we're going to just do however we can make this work for ourselves and not worry about it. And the first thing I said to them was Charles Ives. And Charles Ives, you know about Charles Ives. He had a piece called Music for Two Marching Bands. And it was two marching bands playing two different pieces at the same time. And I said, we can do that. You know, I'll play a shuffle, a blues shuffle with my band, and then the symphony could do whatever they want. Then we could have the blues band play a blues ostinato. An ostinato is a repeated phrase. So, do-dum, 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 do-dum. And then the symphony could play classical music on top of that ostinato. And then we could do the reverse. The symphony could play an ostinato, a classical ostinato. That would be, for instance, da 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 da, and the blues band could improvise over that. And so then all the mathematical possibilities and variations of that idea would give us plenty of material, where the blues band would be the blues band. The symphony would remain classical in the symphony, so they both have their character. They would maintain their characters. So you'd hear the blues, you'd hear the classical. It wasn't a blend. It wasn't a blend that created another form. It was the two forms existing together and collaborating. And that was the idea. And that was the first, work where blues came to classical for me, and it defined my whole career, following through with the blues band and also doing the more experimental work with symphony orchestras. And eventually it became chamber blues when I started doing it with my chamber group. That was all in one breath.
Wow, what a story. But when you say for the symphony, there somebody have to write all the things, is that right? Somebody have to notate and give all the parts, everything. So you were improvising, but the orchestra was playing whatever was written for them, is that right?
Yeah, well, a lot of the score was just blank for us. It just said, play this 12-bar phrase this many times, or stop on the 8th bar or something. You know, it was never really extremely complex. But yes, we were improvising, but you know, to me, improvisation is misunderstood because we sort of have an idea of what we're going to play. You know, we know we're in a particular mode, so we know we're using that mode and not departing too far from it. And we all have our bag of tricks, all these licks that we know, and then we just take them out and throw them together. So we're sort of throwing little pieces together and stuff. But so it wasn't improvisation in the sense that it was completely free. It was within a framework of 12 bars, this key, this mode, and what we've been doing in the past for the last couple of years. We were just doing that. So it wasn't as much that. And then there are parts in the piece where I felt like it didn't call for improvisation. It really called for something more melodic that is going to fit. So I would actually write those parts out for myself. There was nothing in the score, but I thought, no, in this part, there's this important transition. So I want to know that it'll work perfectly from here to there. So I would actually write what I was going to play. And that happened throughout.
Wow, fantastic.
Pieces, yeah.
So, but the orchestra, everything was written and given to the orchestra, and they played, and it was a great collaboration. Fantastic.
There was one part that you might say was a little bit improvised from the orchestra, and that's in that Charles Ives part.
Oh.
Where we were going to play 3 choruses of a blues shuffle. And they had the music written, but no bar lines. So Seiji had to conduct them in such a way that we ended together. And so he was like feeling it and moving them ahead and holding them back and doing all that so that we could end together.
Wow.
And we did have a little safety where we played we repeated 1 bar until Seiji was ready if he was coming in late. And we were ready to cut it off any time if he came in early. So that's how we managed that improvisation.
Beautiful, beautiful. How did you get into music? Well, I mean, any of your family members or parents or uncles, anybody into music?
Yes. Now, I was 8 years old and my parents sent me to have clarinet lessons. And I remember the clarinet lessons were just almost next door. The teacher was almost next door. And I remember walking down the sidewalk with my little clarinet case and taking lessons. And it was at that time that somebody in my family said, do you know your cousin, Bobby, is studying music in college? Or, you know, there was some stories about this other musician in my family. You know, there was supposed to be an excellent musician and he plays percussion and drums. Then I found out he's on the Johnny Carson show.
So as long as your family members, other than your cousin, nobody else in the family musicians?
My dad played clarinet.
Oh.
You know, and my dad played clarinet. He didn't keep up with it, but there was a clarinet in the basement and he taught me a little bit how to play, and then I was taking lessons. I also then had some piano lessons, but I didn't like that. And I never practiced, and I didn't like when he would slap my hands. I think, you know, when we're born, we're very naturally connected to music. We very naturally love music. And then we're taught how to not like it. But there was this little spring door stopper on our door. I played with that for hours. That was, I considered that to be my first instrument.
Wow.
And so there was, then after that, clarinet, and then there was a C melody saxophone. It's like a tenor saxophone, but a cheap version of it. And I learned to play that a little bit. And then I learned to play some rock and roll on it, just some melodies. And then I got a tenor sax, and I went into college to avoid going to Vietnam. And how I got in, I don't know, but I had to practice 10 hours a day to pass the entrance exam. I had to learn all the scales on the piano, and I had to learn some little simple classical pieces on the piano. And I had to spend 10 hours a day for 3 months in order to pass the entrance exam to get into the music college at Roosevelt University. And unfortunately, while I was in there, I was failing all my academic classes. And the only classes that I passed were the performance classes, because my teachers were very compassionate and knew I was a slow learner, but they also knew I cared about expression. In fact, expression for me was first, because I couldn't play all those notes, but I cared about playing one note with expression, and they appreciated that, and they saw that. In fact, one of the violinists from the opera, the Civic Opera here in Chicago, was my teacher at Roosevelt, my violin teacher.
Oh, you learned violin too?
I didn't say I learned violin.
But you said you're a violin teacher.
Right.
I caught you. Okay.
He said I was the worst student he ever had.
Wow. Wow, unbelievable.
And I said to him, why in the world would anyone want to torture themselves learning the violin?
Wow. Oh, no wonder he said that. Okay.
And now your whole family has gone down that road.
Thanks to my father.
Yeah.
So your family, as it is, you learned it.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you for torturing yourself, because what you brought and what you're bringing to the world is just so incredible. Thank you so much. The violin players really deserve special thanks. And you being we really owe a lot. The whole world owes a lot to you and your family.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks. You have collaborated with different artists. Can you mentioned about C.G. Osawa, you mentioned about some blues and your own group and everything. And any other memorable collaboration you want to talk about?
Yeah. One of the most amazing, surprising. When people approach me and say they want me to play with their symphony or something like that, it's like crazy, but nothing like this one fella, really persistent too, because he was playing a form of music that was beyond my comprehension, and he wanted me to do a performance with him. Finally, I went, okay, Dr. LS, okay. I'll do the performance at orchestra with you.
Wow.
And then I said, but don't give me any chord changes. Just because you were going to write something for me. And I said, oh, and this was like the concert was going to be in a couple days. And you were coming over on the flight, and you were going to write something while you were on the flight. And I said, okay, I only have 1 day to learn this, so make it really simple, no chord changes, and it'll be great. There was a rehearsal the night before the performance. I don't know if you remember that. You had Kalamaka Rao.
Kamalakar Rao, yes, okay.
Yeah. I don't know, was he 90 years old or 105 years old or something? He was
He was
elderly.
not that old. He probably was in 60s that time, probably.
Oh, wow. I thought he was old back then. So anyway, he's sitting on a table with the mridang, and all the musicians are there rehearsing, and you have a lot of material to rehearse. And it was a long rehearsal. And Kamalaka Rao was sitting there the whole time, paying complete attention to every word, to every note, right there every second of the rehearsal, as were the other musicians, focused on you, following you, everything. And at one point, it's getting really late. So I went up to you at some point. I said, Dr. LS. And you said, yes. I said, do you have an idea when the rehearsal is going to end? Because I could call my wife and tell her when to pick me up. And the way you're looking right now, that was your response. You just looked at me. I went, never mind.
Thank you. Can you say something briefly about, you were into Indian philosophy, you had a guru, you meditate, and all these things. You can briefly say how you got exposed to that and anything you want to say about it.
Okay. So I met Swami Muktananda came to the States. I was experiencing emotional pain, so I set up an appointment to meet Muktananda, and I was told that there were thousands of people that were following him at that time, so I was going to get a private meeting with him, and he said, but you need to ask 3 questions, and that's going to be your communication. So at the time, I'm experiencing this emotional pain. I went to him, and here was my 3 questions. You ready? My 3 questions. Baba, I'm experiencing great pain because of women. That was my 3 questions. And he said, throw away your pain and marry your music.
Any most favorite place you like to perform? Could be more than one.
Right. It's not the place. It's the people. And the people that my favorite experience in performing is with, you're going to think that I'm saying this just because you're here, but it's performing with your family.
Oh, very, very kind of you. Thanks.
Yeah, but if someone else asked me that question, it would be the same answer.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
Thanks
to you. Thanks to Holly. Wonderful talking to you. Great pleasure. And we will meet soon. Thanks a lot. God bless.
God bless.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you for staying with us. Our last presentation for the Lakshminarayana Global Music Festival 2022 is a never-before-heard recording of the song Times Must Change by Dr. L Subramaniam. It features the legendary, late, great Larry Coryell. It also features Chris Rhyne, Premik Russell Tubbs, Jerry Watts, Joe Taylor, and Subhash Chandran. Please enjoy the music. Thank you for being with us at the Lakshminarayana Global Music Festival 2022. Over the last 31 years, the Lakshminarayana Global Music Festival has been such an integral part of our lives, and thank you for making it a part of your lives too. Please stay with us on social media. When things are better, we hope to see you in person at live concerts. And as always, please enjoy the music.